This is the intro. Just got a fresh new haircut from the old barbers down in town. I mean, I do like getting a haircut. I'm a big fan of it. It just, gets rid of all the unnecessary bits. It makes me feel very confident. And just generally, I look more presentable, Much like a great haircut, cutting in the editing suite is also important for those exact same reasons. I mean, flawless transition. Not at all contrived or clunky. Editing, in my opinion, is one of the most important aspects of filmmaking. While acting is important for bringing characters to life, and music can evoke all these particular emotions, and directing sort of just brings everything together in a cohesive way. But editing is what binds the film together. Over the years, my appreciation and even my love for editing has grown tremendously. Thanks in part with my own experience in making short films. I mean, I've edited all my own films as I do with these videos, and having to deal with challenges such as knowing what to cut, where to put clips, how long or short a scene should be. All of that has made me realize how crucial and also how difficult editing is to figure out. There's an argument that could be made for whether good editing should be noticed or not noticed. And I'll get that debate out of the way immediately, and I'll say that it has equal merit. I mean, letting a well-edited film pass you by without being distracted by it is just as great as a film that wants you to notice how profoundly brilliant or well thought out its editing is. I do think, however, that oftentimes editing is overlooked. It's obviously easy to jump to praising a film's cinematography and how good it looks or how brilliant the performance is, and that's obviously all important stuff. But equally fascinating is pondering why those beautiful shots were chosen to be placed together in a sequence. I mean, what does editing those beautiful shots together tell us as an audience member? I mean, how does the rhythm or pacing change the tone of the film? How can editing help us connect to the story? In this video, I'm hoping to explore these questions while giving various examples and breaking down how important editing is as the connective tissues that forms the crux of a great film. There will also be some mentions and examples of editing that I feel don't work quite as well, just to add some contrast to the main examples that we'll be looking at. It's a very politically correct way of me saying that they are badly edited, sure, but ultimately this video is all just my opinion, and I am by no way a professionally trained expert in editing. I'm entirely self-taught, so don't take my word as gospel. Not like you would anyway. I know I sound all smart and pretentious in my examination of films on this channel, but the reality is I'm just dumb and pretentious. Also, there will be discussions of spoilers going ahead, so usually I don't highlight this in my past videos, but I'm trying to make a conscious effort to give warning to this. So if people have the option to skip a film that they don't want spoilers for, you will have a warning just at the bottom of the screen, just before I start talking about any spoilers. A film story almost entirely hinges on the edit. If you miss out crucial information or do not emphasize that information while editing, you can potentially derail a film story and leave audiences completely in the dark. I mean, similarly, editing is crucial in regards to how information is delivered to the audience. The editing can greatly dictate the way we interpret a character or story, so the way we manipulate those sequences together is important for creating a desired reaction and for making our messages clearer. There's a small-time independent director called Alfred Hitchcock. You may have heard of him. He once made an observation about editing that I'll reiterate to you now. If you had a close-up of a man staring blankly off into the distance, and you were to cut to a shot of a woman playing with a child, and then back to the man, now smiling, it would be safe to infer as an audience member that the man is sincere and finds a degree of joy or happiness in seeing a woman playing with her innocent young child. Now, if you take those same two shots of the man and now replace the woman and her child with a shot of a woman in a bikini lounging in the sun, well, now the scene takes on a whole new meaning despite the shots of the man remaining the same. He's no longer sweet and endearing, he's now a creepy little fucking pervert. This is all in relation to something known as the Kuleshov effect. I will link down below a brilliant video by Folding Ideas where he breaks down this term further, and I would highly recommend it. But fundamentally what the Kuleshov effect is referring to is the notion that meaning is created through shots interacting with one another. For example, I've mentioned before in my video on You Were Never Really Here about how Joe's backstory and the details surrounding his life, including his traumatic upbringing, is never told explicitly, but rather through its editing. Joe sits on the edge of his bed, staring blankly into the distance before we cut to a young child covering his head in a plastic sheet as screams echo in the background, and then back to Joe on the bed. Meaning is crafted through these shots interacting with one another as Joe's blank stare takes on meaning when combined with the terrified child, leading us as a savvy audience member to infer that it is a window into his past. Another example of editing together shots to help tell the story can be seen throughout all of Mad Max Fury Road. I mean, it is just astounding the amount of storytelling that George Miller is able to create on both a macro and micro level within his film, while still making everything feel precise and coherent. Besides having some of the best choreographed and constructed action sequences put to film, Mad Max does a great job at telling small-scale stories within its overarching story, and all of it leads to big payoffs. We see this through the film's interaction with Furiosa's knife that she has hidden in her gear stick. The editing deliberately cuts to it when she checks over her vehicle, as well as also making specific cuts to it when she is sheathing it or unsheathing it, as a reminder of its presence and an emphasis on its importance within the story. This micro level of storytelling is seen when Max meets the wives for the first time, and Splendid gets a leg shot. The moments in which the camera lingers or cuts to her wound throughout the entirety of the story becomes instrumental later on, just as much as the cutbacks to Furiosa's knife become. Both start as very small elements that are called back to through the edit before greatly impacting the story directly further down the line. This is also known as Chekhov's rifle, a storytelling device that refers to making repeated callbacks to an important item, prop, or plot point in a story that will pay off later down the line. While it mostly relates to screenplay writing, I think it plays relevance to editing as well, as the edit becomes crucial in emphasizing those moments so that when Chekhov's rifle eventually does go off, it goes off with all the right bang that makes it feel earned and cathartic. Compare Mad Max's edited reminders to the dagger or Splendid's injury to something like the 2016 Suicide Squad film. In that film, there is a conscious effort to edit in reminders and callbacks to a pink unicorn gag with Captain Boomerang, only to not have any payoff for it. Captain Boomerang is repeatedly shown to have a pink unicorn fetish. Hilarious, I know. And there are scenes quite explicitly edited in to show Boomerang picking up and putting a unicorn into his jacket. So when he's stabbed in the chest through his jacket later on in the film, it makes perfect sense to have him reveal that he was saved by a wad of money instead of a pink unicorn. This is an example of Chekhov's rifle being loaded and cocked, only to backfire and go off like a sad ejaculation. Again, shout out to Folding Ideas. I'll link down his video on Suicide Squad. It is a fantastically precise, intricate breakdown of how poor that film's editing is. I've honestly learned a lot about editing from Folding Ideas, and I could not recommend his channel anymore. So I think we've quite thoroughly explored the crafting of a film's narrative through editing scenes together, through the Kuleshov effect, as well as touching on editing in relation to storytelling. Another aspect I want to discuss within this section is montage, and how montage can similarly contribute to telling a story. A montage, by today's definition, is the technique of selecting, editing, and piecing together sections of film to create a continuous whole. Oftentimes, it's used to demonstrate passage of time and to give the audience key important details in relation to the narrative and its characters. Swiss Army Man was going to be one of my go-to examples to look at due to its fun, subversive, creative way it presents and explores montage to show how Manny and Hank grow closer. I need to burp really badly. In the end, however, I thought a more interesting example can be seen in the opening moments of The Last Black Man in San Francisco. Honestly, you could watch this opening by itself and just accept it as its own short film. I mean, it is so stunning, both visually and sonically, while also being a brilliant little story itself. The montage cleverly plays off normal speed and cranked footage with one another to highlight certain details that could otherwise go unnoticed. It becomes a scene of two halves, with the beginning moments of Jimmy and Mont riding through a derelict neighborhood juxtaposed against the luxurious streets of the inner city. Additionally, Jimmy and Mont's reactions to the city and its people can be very clearly seen, and it helps us to understand how they feel about San Francisco. As they sail through the outskirts, the montage cuts from a wider than skating to a collection of people laughing and hanging out. Compare that to when they're in the city and we see Mont turn his head towards the camera before we cut to the various hostile glances of the people in the city itself, and we can already gauge the feelings of tension between them. The whole sequence tells a story in itself about treading into unfamiliar territory. of a journey to find a home that has been lost. I mean, through some clever use of cutting and pairing images together, this montage essentially tells us the entire story of the film and what to expect before we've even barely started. Another montage worth touching on is Parasite and its cleverly crafted sequence we will call the Peach Heist. I think this is such a brilliant montage that I think it should be more experienced than me just describing it to you, so I will keep my examination of it brief and simply mention how it is a perfect and masterful way in which story is communicated to the audience in a clear, cohesive manner. It perfectly crafts a pace and rhythm that amps in intensity and stakes with some excellent use of callbacks to set expectations before an astounding climax. After you finish this video, please, 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 if you haven't, go watch Parasite and look out for that Peach montage. When you watch it, pay attention to what is being shown to you and how the montage emphasizes those moments through its sequence of shots. Jumping off from the superb montage work from Parasite, I want to talk about the importance editing plays in crafting pace and rhythm and how this impacts the experience of the film. By selecting how much to cut from a sequence or how much to keep in, you drastically alter and manipulate an audience's interaction and connection to a film. A film with lots of cuts and a high pace could denote feelings of anxiety or stress, while a film with very few cuts and lots of long, drawn-out takes can suggest feelings of apprehension or expectation. A film's entire tone or atmosphere can hinder on the pace and rhythm of its editing. I think the obvious example of this is using cutting to emphasize comedy, and the masters of this would be Chris Dickens, Paul Matchis, and Jonathan Amos, also known as the editors on many of Edgar Wright's films. Edgar Wright is such a brilliant comedic director, and alongside the editors I just mentioned who work with him, he has managed to craft some of the best and most original comedies we will ever see, thanks to its hilarious, highly strung, cartoon-inspired edits. Edgar Wright's films deserve a whole video of their own, so I won't delve too much into that. But using it as the basis of a film that uses high adrenaline, fast editing to such great effect, an example of a film that I think misses the mark while trying to do something similar would be Moulin Rouge. Please put your pitchforks down and let me explain. Now, I can't say Baz Luhrmann's films have ever been a huge attraction to me, in all honesty. I just don't think his style is my thing. And a lot of my disconnect with Moulin Rouge came from how rapid the editing style was. I mean, there was a huge emphasis on speed and urgency and being as loud and as hectic as you can possibly be. But notice how I don't call it bad editing. I really don't think it is bad editing necessarily, as it is so obviously intentional and made to match the colour and craziness of its premise and story that it'll be hard to call it bad when it does such a good job at matching that insane energy. I mean, my issues with it is just that the emphasis becomes on showing as much as you can in as quick a time as possible. So as an audience member, my focus is no longer on what I'm watching, but rather just trying to get through it alive. Moving on before everyone tells me how wrong I am for not getting Moulin Rouge, and I accept that I don't necessarily gel with it, it's fine. I want to talk about the importance of slowing pace down and just fucking chilling out, bro. How sometimes not cutting becomes just as important as what you cut. Drawing out shots longer than you would anticipate can help create a distinct tone and feeling with it, oftentimes used to heighten an audience's connection to a scene or moment. It's like the film is telling us to really lean in and focus here by choosing to not cut away. I think a go-to example of this working to phenomenal effect would be in Hunger, during a conversation between Bobby Sands and a priest. When the scene plays out and the two sit opposite one another in a wide shot, the focus becomes on the two characters sitting on opposite sides in the both literal and figurative sense. They are at complete odds and trying to find some sort of connection or resolution that is emphasized through the composition of the scene. However, most crucial to the effect, and as such our investment in the conversation, is that the duologue plays out in just the wide shot. I mean, for 17 whole minutes, we stay here listening to this conversation. And it's only after 17 minutes do we actually cut to a close-up of Bobby, right as he gives a thought-provoking monologue and a further insight into his soul. I mean, most conversations would be shot in as simple a manner as shot, reverse shot, but here the emphasis becomes on hanging on every word, about listening to this conversation to its entirety, because what they are saying matters more than what they are looking like during it. It's only when Bobby really starts to let more of his guard down do we finally cut up close to see his expression, and as such, learn a bit more about how he's feeling. Now compare the careful, considered, and unique approach to Hunger's dialogue scene to something like Bohemian Rhapsody and its quite infamously badly edited meeting scene. I mean, notice how, unlike Moulin Rouge, I do think this is bad editing. I'll play most of it uncut next to me while I speak, and hopefully you'll pick up on how off-putting and stilted it feels. I mean, now it's a very different scene from Hunger that's looking to achieve a very different effect. But Bohemian Rhapsody really falls flat in trying to capture a conversation in an intriguing or engaging manner. I mean, why does each shot rattle off faster than the previous one? Why is there no room to breathe? There is a huge disconnect that's created here between what the characters are saying and how we're supposed to interpret it as an audience member. The things they're saying become just lost in the edit. It's a scene with very little purpose behind why it's so quick and rapid with its editing. Unlike Moulin Rouge, which has an argument for why it is so disorienting and hard to follow at times. A conversational scene shouldn't be hard to follow, and yet it is here. I mean, it's proof that giving space to breathe in a story and to process things is important, and that sometimes less is more. Now, this video was initially conceived to be a discussion piece about the film Bait and how fantastically well edited it is, before it became more of a general discussion on editing. But I will take this moment to talk about Bait editing and how brilliant it masters pacing. Bait is spectacularly edited, and the reason it is so well edited is because it sort of does everything that I'm highlighting in this video. In particular, its managing of pace and rhythm is superb, with one of the best examples of how it handles like fast pace and tightly edited moments being during a scene at the pub where the main character Martin is having an argument with the pub owner, which is matched alongside an argument over who has dibs at the next pool table game between some kids. The comedic tone is excellently elevated by the precise manner in which each shot is edited together, such as Hugo's gradual interjections during the heat of Martin's conversations, with the line "shut up" being so well placed that it derives such an excellent opportunity for humour in the heat of the discussion that Martin is having. Additionally, Bait's ability to excellently draw out and prolong scenes is equally well done, with repeated shots of Martin walking down the street feeling particularly more effective in communicating Martin's feelings in the story due to just how uncomfortably long we linger with him. Then there's the contrast of the two styles of pacing during the fishing sequences, with the speed of the edit to show how easy it is for Martin to take a fish from a net is, compared to how we linger with Neil to show how he struggles doing it. It does such a great job at illustrating the difference between experience and youth, while also adding to the development of Neil's character as a fisherman. I mean, oh, it's so good. Please just go watch Bait when you can. It is supremely fantastic and very, very Cornish. Final point of discussion is about how editing can heighten the emotion of a scene and to convey a particular emotion to the audience. Once again, calling back to Hitchcock, this is the equivalent of the moment we cut from the woman with her baby, or the bikini, back to the smiling man. The cut to the smiling man makes us feel a particular emotion about them, content with their happiness or disgusted by their leeriness. Pairing and cutting shots together can help communicate a feeling to an audience and change our perceptions or connection to a character and its story. For example, you could use an edit to make a pointed reveal that would heighten the emotional impact of a scene due to the nature of the cut and what is being revealed. I mean, you can see this in the 2015 Macbeth film, when Lady Macbeth is delivering her monologue before she dies later. The cold lighting and unbroken edit of her monologue combined with Cotilliard's committed performance already establishes a particularly depressive tone. But it's the cut over her shoulder to reveal she has been delivering this monologue to an apparition of her dead child that just what really seals the deal. That reveal, that purposefully placed edit, is the exclamation point of the entire scene. That is a very sorrowful reveal, but equally an edit to reveal something can be done for shock. I mean, you would see this throughout the entire pantheon of horror films. I mean, with all the fast jump cuts to stutter and upset the flow of a scene, being the most obvious way to elicit terror. I mean, most famous example being the shower scene in Psycho. Saint Maud is a marvellous and very underrated horror film in my opinion. And yes, I do think it's a horror film. I mean, it may not be explicitly scary in the traditional sense, but to me there's nothing scarier than dissecting religious beliefs from the point of view of a lonely, mentally unstable protagonist. Saint Maud utilises a jarring, fast match cut at the very end of the film to dramatic, terrifying effect. Very quickly, a match cut refers to two discontinuous shots that are connected through a visual similarity, such as 2001, when the bone turns into a spaceship, or You Were Never Really Here, matching Joe in a closet to Joe on the train tracks. The final moments of Saint Maud see her self-immolate herself, only to be seen transforming into an angel as her wings unfold and the gathered masses pray to her on a public beach. I mean, it is a rapturous moment that leaves the audience questioning everything up until this point in the film, and it self-actualizes Maud's own questions and beliefs. Until we abruptly match cut to Maud screaming in agony as she is burnt to a crisp. The desired effect here is to create stark, dramatic contrast and to bring the film's ambiguity crashing back to reality. It is through the pairing of the shot's compositions and focus on staying close to Maud's expressions that reinforces the contrast, as well as how fast and brief the edit is. There's just enough time to process what is happening, but short enough to leave a big enough impact to provoke discomfort and horror without overstaying its welcome. So those two examples are deliberately provoking an emotional response through the cut to reveal something. But what other ways can we heighten our connection to a scene through the editing? Damien Chazelle's Whiplash has some phenomenal editing throughout, and specifically the ending moment beautifully creates a quiet, brief moment of reflection for both the characters and for the audience. Now, a lot of the success of the ending can be attributed to everything that came before it and our investments in the characters, but the sequence by itself can still tell us a lot through just the way it's edited. We start with a close-up of Andrew right after he has put his all into the drumming solo. We then cut to Terence's expression, this time an extreme close-up on his eyes, before we then cut back to Andrew's eyes as he seeks validation. Back to Terence, who gives his approval, and then back to Andrew as he soaks up that praise. Finally, back to Terence as he cues Andrew for one last flourish. What do these specific edits tell us? Well, the gradual push-in on their expressions emphasize the connection through their eyes, and as such, a connection to each other's souls. The shots are matched through their composition to emphasize this connectivity, and the speed of the cuts keep enough tension and suspense to reinforce the stakes in the scene, while giving enough breathing time from what came before, just as we're about to wrap up. You could simply just have Andrew and Terence move straight into the final part of the solo and end the film there, or you could frame the silence through a wide shot, but it would immediately lose all emotional impact. The specific pacing of the cuts, the gradual push-in on their expressions, it's all in service of heightening the emotional stakes of the moment. I want to very briefly talk about American Psycho and the story behind Detective Kimball interviewing Bateman after the Paul Allen murder. This scene was shot multiple times, where Dafoe was told by director Mary Harron to perform each take in a different way. One take being where he knows for a fact that Bateman is the murderer, one where he only suspects he's the killer, and finally one where he doesn't suspect Bateman is the killer at all. You could absolutely analyse Willem Dafoe's ever-sensational acting and his clear demonstration of his character's objectives, but what's interesting is that the film seamlessly edits all three takes together. I mean, this keeps the audience guessing as to Kimball's true intentions, as well as shifting the audience anticipation of what will come of Bateman going forwards. It's just a fantastic demonstration of playing around with the editing and post to create a meaningful effect on the audience. I mean, the emotional impact here being that the audience becomes just as confused and on edge as Bateman is. For the sake of consistency, it's probably worth paying mention to when a film's editing and the intention to create emotion through the edit falls flat. It was hard to try and search for a really good example, and the one I've gone with is very much easy pickings, but The Room is just a prime example of editing not telling us or making us feel anything. It just serves the most basic function of saying who's in the scene and where are they. I'm not going to break it down or anything, it really doesn't take an expert to see and feel how clunky and stilted the editing is in The Room. I mean, there's so many videos out there which break down exactly what is wrong with it. Creating emotional connection can also be enhanced through discontinuous editing, which is where a scene cuts to another while not being directly connected through the previous scene's setting or characters. This again can be linked to the Kuleshov effect. There's plenty to choose from here, but one of the first examples I could think of is in Her, when Samantha leaves Theodore. It is an incredibly pivotal moment for both characters that comes at the end of the movie. And before the scene transitions to some more abstract images of Theodore and Samantha interacting in person, there is one small edit that just really hits me hard. During Samantha's speech, the camera pushes in on Theodore and holds an extreme close-up on his sorrowful expression before we cut away to the corner of an empty bed, small rays of light bleeding across the screen as specks of dust dance and swirl around. This cut is timed with Samantha describing where she is heading, this non-material world that is like the space between spaces, somewhere Theodore cannot travel with her. Besides being so beautifully framed, it's the timing of the image with Samantha's words and the simple connection between Samantha being not of the physical world that makes us as an audience connect to her in Theodore's farewell. we recognise this cut to an empty space as a reflection of that non-physical world that Samantha is heading to. But it's also a reminder of what will become of Theodore when she is gone. There will be this empty space left behind where she once occupied. It's a very simple edit, but it does such a phenomenal job at just propelling the thoughts and feelings of this scene. Before we wrap up, I want to quickly leave you with one last mention of a powerful scene that is further bolstered by its editing, the ending of The Sound of Metal. It is a truly beautiful film that everyone should experience. It's a film that literally strips away all sound and music in some of its moments and allows the story to just be told visually, which is propelled especially by its editing. The ending of the film does just that, with Rubens' thoughts and feelings, everything he's experienced in the film prior to the final moments, examined through the serenity and peacefulness of quiet. In the moments of quiet, Rubens is left to reflect and find his own sense of peace, a feeling that is echoed within the audience, all thanks to some brilliant cinematography, acting, and of course, some brilliant editing. Editing is a complex and intricate art. It's incredibly hard to get right, but such a cathartic sensation when it works. There are so many great examples out there and so many great case studies to look at and explore. And I'd encourage you all to watch the films I've mentioned and, if possible, but pay attention to how these scenes are structured and how they're put together, how the editing contributes to the story, to the pacing, to the emotion of the scenes. I spent a lot of time really digging deep into various examples, whether it's to praise a film or to shit on them. I'm sorry, Bohemian Rhapsody. But without over-delivering the point more than I already have, probably worth mentioning that my own short films are not exempt from analysis. I've discovered my own ups and downs through editing my own work and stuff, and I do think some of it works quite well, such as the manner in which I pace and tell a story of cat and mouse in the fight scene in Bad Dog or the dreamy flashback sequence in Pandora. Other bits, however, just don't work at all, whether it's the woeful contradictions and mistakes in continuity throughout the entirety of Bad Dog, or whether it's Pandora's sort of lack of pace or tension or urgency in any of its scenes. I guess what I'm trying to say with my self-analysis and just through the entirety of this video, editing is hard, so give me a break. I'm fucking stupid. Thank you all very much for watching. Please consider liking and subscribing to this channel if you enjoyed this video. I had a lot of fun discussing a more general topic like this than just one film. So if you do enjoy these kinds of videos and this sort of topic, then please let me know. Stay safe out there, watch films, take care of each other. Much love.